All right, how's it going, everybody? Yeah, we're back at it Monday. This is the last week before Thanksgiving break, and yeah, we're gonna be talking about 5.7, I believe. It's failure of compromise, right? This is during period five, which spans we talked about from the period. It says it on the slide, 1844 to 1877. Right. Our focus today is going to be understanding the political causes that led to the Civil War and how various attempts at compromise ultimately failed to prevent this conflict. So yeah, let's go ahead and begin by setting the stage of the antebellum era that we've been talking about, a period escalating tensions over slavery, politics, and sexualism. Okay, so with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and try to keep this quick, and let's get started, man. All right, so usually we start off with an essential question, right? So yeah, the essential question is asking, what were the political causes of the Civil War, right? We're going to be examining key legislative events, court cases, and political movements, and as we uncover the dynamics that push the nations towards conflict, let's dive into these issues. First, by looking at the presidency of Franklin Pierce and the controversial Kansas Nebraska Act. All right, so there's some videos in this lecture today, so hopefully it will just prolong the class period, give us some more time to kind of focus on some of those issues. But yeah, I'm gonna quit talking. I'm gonna try to keep this short. So awesome. Let's go ahead and begin. So we're met again with the antebellum era, right? So we've been over the nullification crisis, manifest destiny, annexation of Texas, Mexican-American War, and the Compromise of 1850. And so now today we're going to be talking about the Kansas-Nebraska Act, the Dred Scott decision, and Lincoln-Douglas debates. So we never really discussed what antebellum means, right? So this means before war. It's the period of Jackson's second term, and it will lead us to Lincoln's election, right? So yeah, that's the timeline, but we're going to be finishing today the road to the Civil War, which is going to be incredible to talk about. With that being said, I'm going to continue. Yeah, let's go. So as we talked about the Whigs Party before, right? So we see the Whigs Party was actually fading quickly in an attempt to ignore the issue of slavery. They nominated, we talked about Winfield Scott and build a platform and internal improvements. However, that didn't help his campaign. The anti-slavery and the Southern faction of the party went back to fighting, and the party was on edge of splitting apart, right? The Democrats nominated Franklin Pierce, a safe choice because he supported the fugitive slave law, which we went over last week, but was a Northern, right? So the main questions that arose were the attitudes towards morality of slavery, about constitutional state rights, particularly about the right to protect slavery, and differences over economic policies between free labor industrial North and the slave labor agriculture South. So you guys can see there's a little bit of a map right here talking about the electoral vote, popular vote, and you guys can see Democratic and wing, but my big head is covering it. Okay, so you guys can also see the territories. At this point, we own California, we have Texas, and so a lot of these are just territories that we will unravel as we go through history. All right. So as you guys can see that Franklin Pierce is the 14th president of the United States. So we've been over all these presidents during this year. So it's been pretty exciting. Now we're on the 14th. But yeah, Franklin Pierce believed that the abolition was a threat to the nation's unity. So we're going to be talking about mostly him today. And let's go ahead and continue. Yeah, just write the notes down as we go along. So the Kansas-Nebraska Act. So this is a video that I'm going to be showing in class, and you guys are going to be answering the questions. But the Kansas-Nebraska Act was introduced by Senator Stephen A. Douglas, right? A major turning point at this time. Douglas sought to organize the Kansas and Nebraska territories and use principle of popular sovereignty, which we talked about last week, to allow Southerners to decide whether to permit slavery. But however, this act directly violated the Missouri Compromise of 1820, which had banned slavery north of the 36 line, right? We talked about the line that was, it was just a Missouri Compromise. It was a good lesson. But this led to the emergence of a new political party, right? So this is the Republican Party, whose main platform was to oppose the spread of slavery into the new territories, right? So the Kansas-Nebraska Act was not only intensified sectional tensions, but it reshaped the political landscape of the United States. But yes, I'm going to be showing this video in class. If anything, I'm going to put this link in the description, or I'll just put it on Teams so you guys can watch it and answer these questions for a binder check, because I will be checking them on Friday to make sure they're completed. So now let's go ahead and talk about Bleeding Kansas. So the term Bleeding Kansas describes a violent clash that erupted as a result of the Kansas-Nebraska Act, right? Anti-settlers, many by groups like New England Immigrant Aid Company moved to Kansas to establish a free state, right? In response to pro-slavery, Missourians crossed the border to influence the outcome. This conflict highlighted the deep divisions within the country, and both sides resorted to violence, right, to advance their cause. What's more, the Pierce administration did little to address this unrest, right? So furthering the crisis, right? So you guys can see on the slide, the Pierce administration did nothing to stop the chaos that was going on at this time. But yeah, that's what it Bleeding Kansas. This is the slide. Go ahead and write down the notes and let's continue. So it's important to state that the North and the South are just completely just fighting at this time, right? We talked about in the beginning of the lecture, right? And so in the year 1856, right, Carl's Summer attacked Democratic administration. His remarks included personal charges against the South Carolina Senator Andrew Butler. Butler's nephew, Brooks, defended his uncle's honor by walking into the Senate chamber and beating Summer over the head with a cane, right? So you guys can see what's kind of going on. There's a lot of people just looking around. There's a lot of chaos going on in this picture, right? To just kind of get like a little description of what's going on. So Northern representatives voted to insert that the Brooks, right? So but this never passed the Senate, right? So the Southerners applauded Brooks for what he did. But this event became a symbolic like event that kind of just grew hatred between the both North and South. And so it's really important to like, know what this picture is. You can see, like I said, chaos. You can barely see the cane in his hand, but yeah, he beat him over the head. And yeah, this is becoming a rivalry. Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about it for a couple days in lecture, what's leading up to the Civil War, but we'll go ahead and just start picking at it as we go along. So go ahead and let's continue. All right, so in this slide, we're going to be talking about the collapse of the Whig Party and the birth of the Republican Party. Right, so the Kansas-Nebraska Act also had a profound impact on the political parties. The Whig Party, already weakened by internal divisions, right, collapsed. They were collapsing at this time. So most of the Northern Whigs joined the new formed Republican Party, right, was dedicated to stopping the spread of slavery, right? So meanwhile, the Southern Whigs aligned with the Democratic Party at this time. So when we talk about the Republican Party, although not initially calling for the end of slavery, united with the Free Soilers, anti-slavery Whigs, and Democrats under a common purpose, right? So the new party became a powerful force in American politics and set the stage for 1860 presidential election, which we'll be probably going over this week. I have to check my lesson plan. But yes, the newly found party, the Republican Party. So keep that in mind and go ahead and write the notes and let's move on. So you guys can see the election of 1856. The Republicans' first candidate in major election was John C. Fremont, right? Their platform was no expanding on slavery, free homesteads, and pro-business tariff. Democrats were only remaining major party, right? They nominated James Buchanan, rejecting the Pierce and Douglas because of their association with the Kansas-Nebraska Act. So if you guys can see, Democrat was Buchanan, and that Republican was Fremont. As you guys can see, this is like I said, it's pretty much staying blue at this time, and you see a little bit. You see the electoral votes, you see the popular votes, and then you see the territory. So if you go ahead and just like kind of like break down this, right, and which will lead us to our next slide. So you guys can see, we see James Buchanan won the election, right? He is our 15th U.S. president. He unsuccessfully tried to preserve the Union by curtailing North anti-slavery, right, and enforcing the Fugitive Act of 1850. which we talked about last week. But yeah, that was just a little insight, and let's go ahead and move on. And yeah, so now we're going to be talking about Dred Scott versus Sanford, right? This is mostly going to be more of like a class discussion, so I'm going to save that for class. I put some space in your guide notes to kind of write down the answer for these. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and move on, try to end this a little early. It's already past 10 minutes, so let's go ahead and move on. Now let's talk about Lincoln Douglas debates, right, in 1858. So finally, we actually see Abraham Lincoln, right? We see the debates, a series of 7 debates that were going on during this Illinois Senate race of 1850, right? So you see Senator Stephen Douglas faced off against Abraham Lincoln, who framed slavery as a profound moral issue. Lincoln's famous House divided speech just pretty much told everyone his view, right? Stating a house divided against itself cannot stand. This government cannot endure permanently half slave or half free. And these debates brought national attention to Lincoln, setting the stage for his presidential run in 1860, which is basically solidifying the ideological, divides that will lead to the Civil War. So you guys can see the little debates, and we're actually getting introduced to Abraham Lincoln, the guy on the $5 bill, right? The first president that would end up getting assassinated. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and continue, and let's go ahead and end this with the last slide. So yes, we see what I just quoted, right? It says a house divided against itself cannot stand. I believe that the government cannot endure permanently half slave and half free, right? That was part of his speech. But to conclude this lesson, the political causes of the Civil War were deeply rooted to the failures of the compromise, right? The rise of a new political ideologicals that were talked about during this time, the judicial decisions that only deepened sectional divides, right? From the Kansas-Nebraska Act to the Dred Scott decision and to the Abraham Lincoln Douglas debates, to each event brought United States closer to conflict. But yeah, this is just one step closer to the Civil War, and I appreciate everybody that are watching this video doing discussions. I just put all grades in from last week, and you guys did incredible. I see a lot of you guys' grades just going up, so keep up the great work. This is the last week before we head off to Thanksgiving break for a whole week. And so, yeah, let's make this a good week. Let's make it a good Monday. I hope tomorrow's a good day. Hope you guys have a good day. And so, yeah, peace and love, y'all. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Well, you'll be watching this on Mondays, but yeah, thank you guys.